Now, I've seen Dupli's 7 Layers of Rappers and Daniel Green's 7 Layers of Fantasy. They're exceptionally well done videos, and it made me think, why not do one about anime? Then I thought, there's so many different kinds of genres, so many different kinds of demographics. There's no real way to cohesively put anime into something like this. I mean, it really makes it hard to consolidate the anime viewing experience when there's so many kinds of anime out there. There is one studio that fits the bill. I mean, anytime you watch it for the first time, you're really amazed and it makes you want to get deeper and deeper into it. And that's Studio Ghibli. They really are a mystery wrapped up in an enigma because there's something very captivating about Studio Ghibli's movies that you just don't really understand, at least initially. But the further you go down, the further it makes more sense. The more you realize that Ghibli's not just about delicious food and adorable creatures. It's a way of life. It's the first thing Ghibli uses to capture you in. In a world where the top animation studios have fully embraced CGI, Studio Ghibli is one of the last bastions to still commit to 2D animation. At least 99% of the time, the watercolor backgrounds and the soft textured look just gives an appeal to the visuals that cannot be understated. The environments are dense and rendered with such care, like the bathhouse in Spirited Away. The intricate architecture, the clean, shiny floors, the flower designs, and even the gold plates just make it look so grand. Even Yubaba and Bo's rooms are filled with colorful carpetry and plush pillows. Everything just feels alive. The weather also looks so authentic, like in The Secret World of Arrietty, when Arrietty goes to confront Sho for the first time. Do you see how those raindrops just flow when Arrietty goes outside? I just love the subtle impact of how the water just drops on the ground and how the little sprinkles of water just fly back up. It's just so realistic and beautiful to look at. I also love the shine and the translucency of those raindrops. It just feels so perfect. Even the human characters feel so believable. While they're simplistic in design, their facial expressions and their body language more than make up for the believability. One of my favorite scenes of this is in The Boy and the Heron when Mahito is practicing archery. You see how his eyes scrunch when he's aiming and filled with concentration, but when the bow starts moving a little bit, his eyes let up because he's just amazed at what's happening and then just lets go. And then you see his face just get super wide and then the bow goes all over the place. It's just so intricate how they detail the facial expressions, and it just amazes me every time I see it. And there are many times in the movie where Mahito's eyes do all the talking. Also, the pan shots and the over-the-shoulder views make Ghibli films feel so cinematic. And don't forget about the enchanting creatures and the fantastical machinery. And that's the first stage of Ghibli, the clean, the beautiful, and intentional visuals. It's not long before the visuals start building stronger emotions. That's because the music creates a level of comfort that will have you reliving your childhood. While the studio has had many composers make beautiful music, there are none more crucial and more iconic than Joe Hisaishi. He's the Robin to Miyazaki's Batman, and when they work together, you can expect something truly beautiful and truly captivating. Hisaishi's memorable melodies perfectly complement the storytelling, and he has this uncanny ability to create music that'll make you feel something right here. One amazing scene is when the two girls in My Neighbor Totoro start exploring their new old house. Add in Hisaishi's serene compositions, and don't forget about the sound effects like the old squeaky wooden floors and the even noisy cicadas in the background. It reminds me of a time when me and my sister would ride in our grandfather's tractor trailer, and we would get to see all the chickens on their farm in the summertime. It was just so fun and just so great, I just enjoy that so much. And Totoro, along with many other works from Studio Ghibli, just really give you that feeling of nostalgia that can't be denied. Now, this type of nostalgia is priceless, but they all can't be warm and gentle. Some may remind you of growing pains back at a time when you were more vulnerable and awkward. Only Yesterday is one of those films where we see Teiko, a 20-something-year-old, reminisce about her time as an adolescent. Dealing with math and puberty. Crazy times, huh? There is also a sense of whimsy with Ghibli because they create such awe-inspiring, such imaginative designs. Like watching Howl's Moving Castle lift off is still one of my greatest joys in the world. It's like when we would go see the space shuttle lift off, It's just truly, truly amazing to watch something so big just go straight up, creating designs and seeing something so enormous just lift off into a place that is far beyond our reach. Color palettes tell the story too, like in Spirited Away. The red and golds will wow you with the liveliest moments, and they'll make you smile, they'll make you happy, and probably laugh a little bit. But the blue and grays are much more darker and portray those more scarier tones in the movie. And that's the second stage of Ghibli, the emotions you'll feel when watching their stories. Feeling is a major part of understanding the many beautiful worlds of Ghibli. Whether it's the countryside or a floating city, they all have a soul. The trees sway with intention and the rivers flow with purpose. It's no coincidence that the studio wants you to know that nature should coexist peacefully with us. Take a look at the doorways in the forest and the tunnels. They're not only thresholds between worlds, but emotional transitions because of how you'll feel when you move from one place to the next. It truly will open your eyes when you move between these worlds. And you'll immerse yourself into these worlds because they all feel alive. Even when the cameras move away, you can still imagine people moving about and even the spirits lingering on too. And Ghibli's softer magic approach is a big reason why. As with looser magic systems, you'll leave with many different questions. Like in Ponyo, how did the powerful wizard Fujimoto get his powers in the first place? Who is that Buddha-like figure in Kaguya-hime? The lack of boundaries lets you really use your own imagination to fill in the blanks and imagine what this world is really about. Because at the end of the day, the true focus of Ghibli is this. How does it feel? I don't think I'm doing it right, but how do you want it? How does it feel? Do-do-do-do. Okay. You don't need a map to understand it. You'll feel the weight and the mystery, and that alone will make you want to be a part of it. And that's the third stage of Ghibli, the unique world building that'll connect your feelings. Ghibli worlds go much deeper to the point that even the smallest details matter. Hayao Miyazaki often talks about this one concept in particular and implements it in all of his films. It's called Ma. It's the pause between events that give the stories breath. Cooking is a good example of this because it's a normal activity that keeps the story moving along. And that's because no matter how magical the world is, people still gotta eat. That's why you see Sophie cooking bacon and eggs and Himi making some delicious toast with some butter and jam. It's a silent form of world building, and you know what? Even pure silence is another. Remember when Chihiro and No-Face were waiting for the train in Spirited Away? Or Nausicaa standing in the Sea of Decay? These moments mirror life, and that's because inaction is very much as important as action when it comes to the human experience. Many times you're just sitting, chilling, relaxing, and that's every part to your daily existence as going out and playing a sport or doing something else. And we need to embrace all the aspects of the human experience, and that's what Ghibli does so well. Believe it or not, you'll feel an emotional connection between these small moments because they feel so real. It gives you a space to breathe and slow down in a world that is always constantly moving. And that's the fourth stage of Ghibli, the mundane, where it teaches you to notice all parts of life. Noticing the simplest of details help you realize the world goes beyond normal comprehension. Ghibli wants you to know that the supernatural is a part of daily existence. We clearly see it in movies like Princess Mononoke because the spirits inhabit the same world as humans, living not just in temples but in the rivers and in the forests. Nature is more than a backdrop, it's sacred and deserves respect because the spirits depend upon it. And the fact that the world should maintain a healthy relationship between humans and spirits is one of the greatest mantras of Shinto. One thing I love about Ghibli is how they portray spirits. They're more like emotional states than deities. Like No Face, he exemplifies greed, desire, and loneliness. And the Omu embody nature's compassion and fury. Spiritualism plays a very important role in every Ghibli character's personal growth because they view it as a connection to that world, not a dogma. Like Kiki, who rediscovers her magic powers because she learns to reconnect with herself and the world around her. And that's the fifth stage of Ghibli. Spirituality is a way of understanding the world and your role in it. Spirituality is a part of life. Everything has an order, which means its effects are not always black and white. If you haven't noticed already, Ghibli characters are never purely good or purely bad. There's always a level of complexity between every character you see, and that's intentional. While I personally don't like Lady Eboshi for what she did in Princess Mononoke, you can't deny she doesn't care for the people around her and does what she can to protect them. Morally gray characters like her are important because Ghibli teaches empathy towards all people. People do things that other people don't like all the time, and the goal that Ghibli wants you to see is to at least try to see things from their point of view. Living in balance in a world filled with disruption is another very important moral. In Nausicaa, we see the Tomekians and the Pegites go to war, and they're not really listening to each other. If they just open their ears up a little to each other, then they realize they're a lot more alike than they realize. How about when a good person creates something that is used for bad intentions? He is a man who grew up loving aircraft since he was a wee little child, and then when he finally had the chance to create something that he really wanted, people end up using it for the war. Now, who's really in the wrong here? The person who created it in the first place, or the people who are using it for war? One thing you probably also realize is that Ghibli protagonists rarely defeat their enemies with a powerful punch or a kick. That's because strength isn't always measured by who fights harder. It's also measured through persistence and understanding and compassion. Like when Sophie's love and courage neutralize Hal's darkness. Small acts of kindness are equally as important, and we see this with the main characters in Whisper of the Heart and Kiki's Delivery Service. They grow through responsibility and helping others around them. Not all movies need to have a big bad. Some are just there for you to form your own moral compass. And that's the sixth stage of Ghibli, morality. It's about finding empathy and balance. Now that you understand all these aspects, it's time to live it. Ghibli doesn't hand you these ideas on a silver platter. It breathes it into the world, the stories, the characters, letting you feel it and embrace it. Nature should coexist peacefully. That's because regardless of how it sometimes might impede upon people's livelihoods, nature is never the enemy. If anything, it's just trying to exist, and even sometimes it's just trying to heal itself from human destruction, and we see this in Nausicaa. Even Pompoko shows nature trying to defend itself against its own demise, and even if they do portray it in a very bizarre and comedic tone. Another philosophy very important is that harmony between opposites is much more valued than trying to vanquish each other. Embracing transformation is another important philosophy to live by. In Spirited Away, Chihiro started off weak and scared, but by the film's end, she was strong and brave. That's because real strength is found through adapting to change, not trying to go backwards. Ghibli also wants you to know that pacifism always wins over violence because the latter only begats pain. And you clearly see this from the devastating point of view of two young kids in Grave of the Fireflies, because they have to live through the effects of what people decided to do in a war. The raw and graphic scenery is meant to pull at your heartstrings because you really see the pain and how much trouble these kids are having to suffer through just to survive. And it's so heartbreaking. Anti-war is a major theme within the Ghibli works, and you'll see it in some form or another in many of the films. That's because the directors want you to know just how cruel and devastating of an impact it has on people that have nothing to do with it. Especially Miyazaki and Takahata, who have seen it firsthand, how much war has a devastating effect in their own country. And that's probably why they feel so strong and adamant about it. Last but not least, finding your personal identity is a philosophy worth living, and we see this throughout many of the characters in Ghibli. Even if it's something like protecting an old rundown building, like in the movie On Poppy Hill, everyone writes their own path. And that's because life is fragile and worth cherishing. And Ghibli's not just about understanding that worldview, it's about living it. Thanks for watching. If you just can't get enough of me and want to show some love and support, please like this video, subscribe. It really does help. And I just want to say, Ghibli is such an amazing studio. They do so many great things. And if you have not had the chance to watch a Ghibli film, you really should. I love the studio so much. I like to say I'm the self-proclaimed Ghibli guy because I really do love everything about the studio. They are so amazing. And look, I've done many videos on my channel about Ghibli. If you want to check out my ranking video, I did one where I talked about all of them and gave them a ranking based on watchability. So you should check it out if you haven't seen it. Now, have a great day, a great night, a great morning, wherever it is, wherever you are, and don't forget, Kokishin Abote Kudasai.